Hi, my name is Brandon, and I'm an alcoholic and addict in recovery. And today I want to talk a little bit about the ego as presented by Chuck C. in his book, A New Pair of Glasses. And this is a transcript from a talk that Chuck C. gave back in the 1970s. And so I'm going to read this section and then talk a little bit about it. He starts out, "Now I am convinced in my own mind, totally and completely convinced, from my toenails to the top of my longest hair, that there's only one problem in this life. One problem that includes all problems, and one answer that includes all answers." Now that's oversimplification, isn't it? One problem that includes all problems, and one answer that includes all answers. I am totally convinced that the only roadblock between me and you and me and my God is the human ego. The only roadblock there is. I further believe that the best definition you'll ever hear of the human ego is the feeling of conscious separation from. The feeling of conscious separation from. From what? From everything. From God. I like to use three words: life, good, God, which to me are synonymous words. Conscious separation from God, from each other, and eventually from ourselves. That is the thing that says to me, here are my big me, little me, smart me, dumb me, rich me, poor me against the whole world. I've got to outthink, outperform, and outmaneuver in order to eke out a miserable living out of an unfriendly universe. That's what they laid on me as a kid. The very cliches of life. The early bird gets the worm. The devil takes the hindmost. You've got to be the firstest with the mostest and build on that premise. Here am I against the whole world. I've got to outthink, outperform, and outmaneuver, consciously separated from each other and from God. I think that's the greatest roadblock there is, the only one. As a matter of fact, the only roadblock there is between me and you and me and my God. And that's the human ego, the seat of all the obsessions of the mind. That's where they come from. So a lot of this really resonated with me, in part because I do think that in today's society, and probably for a lot longer than that, we've been taught that it's important to set ourselves apart from other people. And we've been taught that in the absence of also learning the lesson of why it's important to be a part of something greater than ourselves. And we're taught to be the best, to what does he say? He says to outthink, outperform, and outmaneuver. And we have in our minds this idea that we have to be different, better than, and somehow outperform the rest of the world. And you see this, there's such an emphasis on outperforming the rest of society in our society today, and in being the best, and in taking everything to the limit. And I think that there's not enough emphasis on the importance of being a part of something. In recovery, we get an opportunity to look at that a little bit more carefully, and then to strip away the ego so that we can be a part of something. We get to be a part of, first, our recovery community. We get to join a community where we have a lot of like-minded people, a lot of people we can identify with, and all of a sudden we feel like we are part of a group that is made of people like us. And most of us in our active addiction really isolated, in part because we didn't feel like we belonged. We didn't feel like we were part of the larger society. And so a recovery group, the community built into recovery groups, gives us that. And that's why it's so important to me to participate in those groups and to have a larger community in recovery to participate in, because I need that sense of belonging. I crave it now. I didn't used to think it was important. I used to think that being the loner was the cool thing to do and the right thing to do, and that, that was just a natural byproduct of the kind of person that I was. And that's not true. That was my ego getting in the way of me being a part of something greater than myself. I also like what he says about being apart from God. And God, however you define him, whether you define God as a deity that you worship in a specific way, or whether you identify God as nature or the universe around us like I do, no matter how you define God, setting yourself apart from God rather than being a part of God that's a very different feeling. And as soon as I started in my recovery to identify myself as a part of the God that I believed in, God is not apart from in my belief system. God is not apart from his creation. He is a part of his creation. And so as I live and breathe, I am experiencing the God that I believe in. But I wasn't doing that in my active addiction. I really was focused on myself and setting myself apart from everything else that happened around me. And when I started to realize that I am not different from the things that are happening around me in the world, I am a part of all of those things, then things started to change in my mind. And life actually became a lot easier, and it became a lot easier to go with the flow of life rather than trying to get that current to go where I felt like it needed to go. And that, I think, is the final piece of this for me, is that feeling like I'm a part of something makes it a lot easier for me to sit back and go with it rather than trying to direct it. And for those of us who follow an AA program, we know that the idea of trying to direct the action and trying to take control is one of our biggest downfalls. And we need to focus on what we can do, what's within our control, which is the way we react to the world around us, and stop trying to change everybody and everything else to fit our desires. We need to change ourselves to fit our ideas of what is right for us to do. That's what we need to focus on. And then just watch I hate to use this word, but watch the chaos unfold around us, because sometimes that chaos it's chaos. It's a thousand things happening at once. But I'll tell you something. If I feel like I'm a part of those thousand things happening rather than trying to fight against them, I can face that chaos with peace rather than with stress, anxiety, and depression. And that to me has been the key as I've started to strip away the ego in my life, and I've started to look at what it feels like to be a part of something rather than apart from everything. So that's it for today. I'll be back here tomorrow with more. In the meantime, have a great day.